Ready to go? Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. And here we are. Summer's upon us. Well, only during the day. Not at night. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask if anyone has a declaration of pecuniary interest. The agenda.
I'm gonna declare pecuniary interest on 127 Queen this evening. I'm the general contractor on said project, so thank you.
Number 3 on the agenda is to amend and approve the agenda. So would someone care to move the approval of the agenda? Sherry, second. Julian, any questions or concerns? All in favor, raise a hand. Carried. I am not aware of any delegations, nor am I aware of any correspondence. So getting to item number 6, the acceptance of the minutes, they're in the deck and have been circulated. Would someone care to move the minutes of our April 12th meeting? For Lucas, seconder, Karen. Any discussion or concerns or amendments? All right, all in favor? There is a business arising from the minutes in the form of a priority heritage designation hurdle update.
Yes, that is me. So I reached out to the top property on the list. They said no, but it's something they have been toying with since purchasing the home. So I did let them know that we're kind of operating under an 18-month deadline now. So if they change their mind, they should do so quickly, and then to just have in the back of their mind the fact that, you know, once this window has passed, there could be as much of it as a 5-year waiting period. So I'm not sure if that'll sway them or not, but they do have all the information. So I moved on to the second property on the list, which was Bellington Street North, Gray Gables, the house that's architecturally quite similar to Town Hall. And the property owner was quite honored that their property was being considered, and they were quite receptive. And so they were busy for the next couple of weeks, but we have tentative plans to get together and further discuss. So I think that's a promising lead.
Wonderful. That's a good report. All right, moving on to regular business, 8.1.1 heritage permits. We don't have any to consider. 8.1.2 sign permits, 8.1.2.1, 127 Queen Street East. And we have recommendation, or at least we have a recommendation to receive the permit application and support the facade sign permit as presented. So do we want a motion to get started, or will we have a report first?
Usually Jason talks.
Let Jason just go for it. All right, Jason.
So 127 Queen Street East is on our main street. It's within the Heritage Conservation District, but it's in a solely designated property. What they're proposing today is to install facade signage in what I would state is their sign board area, directly centered in the facade of the building and directly above the door entrance. The proposed materials for the sign are individual letters. They're raised approximately 2 to 3 inches off the facade, and our acrylic black based lettering. The overall sign, it's hard, but I'm giving you an area of the sign based on being individual letters. Will take up about 2 feet in height by 10 feet across the facade. It meets all the checks and balances of our sign bylaw. From my point of view, I'm looking for a recommendation for this application.
Can you tell me a bit about the picture that appears on the left of the page in the package? I see the one on the right.
The left,
What are we
so the
trying to
left,
communicate?
so I'm not trying to communicate anything.
Oh, okay.
The applicant has done a little bit of work more than the sign, but they have not brought that to me at this point. If you read, they're looking to reestablish the glazing above the windows, but that is not part of this application.
Understood. But architecturally, that would be below where the sign is being recommended to go.
Correct. So the way
I
I
just
look
wanted
at
to get
the
oriented.
yeah, so where the way I look at the facade, the area that is not, it's approximately 2 feet above the existing glazing of the building is the signboard. For me, for definition, if you're looking at the picture on the left of the document, it's showing that they're looking, and I think they made a comment that at some point they're going to look to reestablish some kind of a transom across there that looks similar to. So this is something that they found in a magazine or something like that, but you can see that the representation is there. They do have thoughts of doing some painting, but that's not part of this application. So they've looked at a color palette of what they want to accomplish on the front facade as well.
So would someone care to move the recommendation that we received and support as presented, the 127 we sign application? Interested in doing that? Karen, let's second that. Andrea, any further discussion or questions of Jason? All right. All in favor? Then the next sign application relates to 481 Water. Reading that correctly? Yes.
So I think this is,
Focus us through that.
yeah, so I think this is quite exciting. Just 481 Water Street South a few years ago was not a whole lot of building. So here's some success for the committee and what's happened with it. So it's gone through a full renovation, full revitalization of the property. So we all know that it is a part 4 designated building. It's got its own heritage designation. And so I took that into in this application to make sure that what the applicant is proposing did not take away from the heritage aspects of the building. So in this application, they're looking for signage on I would call it the side walls of the building, one facing north to the quarry and one facing south to the back entrance to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Those signs are both the same, and they end up being 95 inches long by 47 high. The third is on the front facade next to the door, and it's significantly smaller at approximately 3 feet by 3 feet. So these are an aluminum back with a graphic vinyl over top that depicts the business's logo. Based on the size of wall and the locations that are put in, it doesn't take away from any of the attributes of this building. And so in my staff report, I recommend meet the sign bylaw and our staff report suggests to accept sign application.
Any questions or comments? So Jason, I am so thrilled with this building and what has been accomplished with it. And I always feel like if I make an observation, maybe I'm being petty, but I noticed something when I was looking at the building, and that is the stone, the actual nature of the stone. There's something unique about the way the stone is in the center of the building on the side. And it's that the large stones get actually bigger as you go up toward the peak. And it gave me pause and said, you know, this is a lovely sign, well proportioned, but especially in view of the fact that there is an opening that could give us some latitude in terms of making choice about placement. Is there any way that the sign could be moved closer to the front eve? Stay in the same horizontal plane, but move closer to the front that would get it out of that, you know, get it into a more neutral stone configuration. And I really, you know, I'm embarrassed to bring it up, but I noticed it and I thought I should ask. Because I'm not sure if the stone, the nature of the stone actually constitutes an architectural feature.
So on the north side, so the quarry side, I know that those large stones are directly connected to an old fireplace inside.
Right.
So that was the chimney, so that might be there. Certainly, you can put recommendation forth. I don't think that it's any different if it's located forward or back. Certainly just acknowledgement of the business that's in there. And you have all rights as a committee to use the portion that says takes away from architectural features. So as a committee, you feel you want to put that motion in, I think it's fully supported. I would push it forward to the applicant and state that it needs to be in an adjusted location. You just have to give me some specifics on it, right? So.
Does everyone understand my observation? Would others like to comment on it since I feel abusive from that?
Do you think that the large stones on that side are also a repair that was done at some point?
No, yeah, well, on the north side, the chimney's right there, so they would use that as larger support for the chimney construction. And the south side, it's interesting.
And by the way, it is present on both the north and the
Yeah,
south.
yeah, there's more on the,
But
there's more on the
But it
north.
stood out in the application more on the south because we had a nice sunny south
Mm.
moment. But- And that's what I faced when I drove in Water Street today. And it's like, oh. I gotta talk about it, Dave.
I'm just gonna say, I would be in support of presenting that to the owner, because I didn't notice it until you pointed it out, so they may be in the same thought that they were just thinking, stick it on the center of the building for being symmetrical, but I think maybe when they see what our rationale is, I don't know the owners, and I don't know their answer, but I would be in support of at very least suggesting a movement.
Just to remind the committee, you have given the direction to myself to make the decision. So your proposal could state it in that manner that, you know, here's our criteria, and then we would push it to the building inspector to place it in that location.
Karen, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I want to drive by the building and all look at it. No, I'm imagining what it would look like to have the signs closer to the front eaves, and I'm sure I've seen signs on buildings that were not always the default center position, and they looked fine. You know, and it might just draw the eye, because it's not in the center, people might think, oh, look at that. So it might actually draw people's eye.
Sherry?
Actually, narrow.
He was just curious why in the first place they were putting it on the building and maybe not in front. Because it would, to me, it would
So-
be just as effective.
So the town owns property right to the porch.
Gotcha, okay, that's what I was wondering.
We do not have any property past the front porch.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. All right, then that makes sense.
So they'd
to
have
that.
to park a painted car.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, this is
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, you know.
Asked and answered?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
So the town maintains the property right up to their front door then? or-
Yeah, so the property line
Right.
between the roads, the road allowance and
Yeah.
their front property line is the porch.
Okay.
The front, the edge of the porch.
Yeah, but not the door, the porch.
No.
Andrea, what are your thoughts?
If the sign is moved like very deliberately close to the west, I guess, edge, and it could look just as nice as it is centered, like just as long as it's far enough over that it looks deliberate
Right.
and not just randomly placed on away from the features.
Right.
It could work.
I mean, you might want to draw a centralized for the sign equidistant between the front wall and the center line, right, of the building, to try and give it some sense of placement. But again, that just getting it over far enough to avoid the coverage in a sensible way, I mean, it could become, I don't know how
So
much
there's some good-
direction you want.
But no, there's some good reference points, so if you are able to look closer at the corner, there's some different stonework at the corner
There is.
as well, so
you'd
you
almost
want
be
to, yeah,
centering it
right, so you
within the
need to,
stonework,
you
right?
need to give me some reference to say, offset from corner by, equal distance or something, like, so there's some things you don't want, I understand your comments, you don't want it that close, but there's some
Yeah.
other things that you guys can reference to give you really good direction on getting it placed.
I think if it's mirrored on both sides,
Mhm.
then it looks deliberate.
It would look intentional.
And both sides, that detail. Well, it's a guideline.
They might consider changing the shape of the sign if they move its location. Like it would look nice, if it was vaguely sort of triangular, actually. That would, that maybe the lettering won't fit.
I mean, that gets into more about what choices are about the way they're choosing to present their business, whereas
Logos.
what I was encouraging was basically to just make it complementary to the building feature as opposed to, I don't want to get unnaturally unbalanced or.
No, and
naturally
it's not our
balanced.
business to suggest what.
But,
Change.
so let's try and focus on Amy, did you want to weigh in on this?
No.
Okay,
No.
just if we try and focus on placement, if you look at the stonework at the corner, and then you look at the stone features in the center, with somewhere centered in those two features, between those two features, would that give you the kind of direction that could help you have the conversation?
Oh, for sure, that's really easy.
Okay. So with all that said, would someone like to generate a motion that accepts the recommendation with the suggestion that Jason have a conversation with the others
So don't,
as we've described,
make sure it's not a suggestion,
Okay,
give it
with,
as a direction.
with the firm direction.
Yeah. No,
Would someone care to form a motion? Or any other motion on this subject matter?
Give it a stab. It's my first motion
Oh,
ever, so
that's-
very
Amy
exciting.
fixes everything, so don't worry.
Okay.
No pressure.
That the design of the sign is accepted as presented, but the placement of the sign be as such that the unique corner stonework isn't covered, nor the center stonework, and it's gone off the rails. So,
Well, that's okay. I think we're getting there.
yeah, somebody fine tune that,
And place somewhere between the two.
yes, so as not to cover either up.
Can you work with that? I mean, is that clear
Yeah,
enough?
no, I can work.
Okay. Do we have a seconder of that motion? Sherry? Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Was it your turn? Julia? I mean, we gotta take turns.
We do.
You do play well together. Are there any other questions or comments? with that? All in favor of the motion? Good. Thank you, Jason.
Sorry, Sherry. you were there.
What happened there?
I was feverishly writing. Okay.
And by the way, I do share your opinion of the opening comments that this building is a building saved from the abyss.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, but truly the abyss, with the hole in the floor that fell, you could fall over 8 feet in the back corner, so.
Yeah.
No, it was well, and, you know, sometimes you can say the right person took it on, and it was a passion for the person that took it on, so certainly that helped.
It really did show. All right, good. So that gets us through sign permits, and now we're into heritage grant applications. And we have one for 20 Water Street South. And that is the Opera House. The recommendation is that we receive the report, approve a heritage grant for the application as submitted. If you could describe that to us, we will have a clear understanding.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the Opera House was recently purchased, so we've been having quite a bit of back and forth with the new owner. And they are looking to do, I think, a number of improvements. So I think we will see more applications, both heritage permits and grant applications in future years from this property. But their most immediate need is addressing the flaking paint on the ground level. So they've received a couple of quotes to have both the front and back of the ground level painted. And they've attached some great photos with some close-ups just to give an idea of what sort of condition that flaking paint is currently in. This building also has an easement with the Provincial Heritage Trust. So that means that any change in paint color requires provincial approval, even though that is not really in the jurisdiction, within the jurisdiction of our Heritage Committee. So they are proposing a single color, and page 21 is the mock-up. So it's kind of like a dark gray, and that has been approved by the Heritage Trust.
So, comments? So we know who the loud members of this committee are. They don't seem to be here.
It all sounds good and regular.
I think at some point that there was a two-tone, like originally, we were just discussing that.
We were before the meeting. You know,
It's hard to prove whether it's black and white.
you know, I mean, the thing about it is this is another building saved from oblivion. But farther back. And paint color is not something we necessarily weigh in on. But the fact that going from a palette of two colors to one color, that is a distinct change. But I don't know how we would ever have that conversation. It gave me a particular concern because we are at the point where there's been some bureaucratic hurdles ticked off. But, you know, we're at the point where paint can be applied.
Yeah,
So I'm just not sure how
it was just,
we would want to go at that.
paint is not within the jurisdiction of this committee, but it is within the jurisdiction of the trust, and they have approved it. So then for this committee to provide comment, which is, I'm not sure where that would go.
So, but it doesn't appear we can see from the picture evidence that there was, I think this certainly is the way it's been painted since the renovation work, I believe, back in the day, so. It's something we become familiar with.
That's it.
But the thing about paint is that, you know, it's like hair color. It's only one good dye job away of being changed to whatever you want. I know. And you can tell creation formula has not been my friend. So, yeah, good question. Any other comments or suggestions about this recommendation?
I would just,
Yeah.
I'm in support of anybody that wants to spend money on downtown properties and beautify them. Again, I don't know that was two-tone. That's how I've always known it in my lifetime. That doesn't mean that's the way it always was. So again, I think if somebody wants to get rid of the flaking paint and cover it up, and we can provide some cash to do it, 100% support.
The woodwork's beautiful, so no matter how they paint it, it's going to look great.
Right.
Everyone will say, wow. So,
Black is very modern, it'll be very striking
Yeah.
in the landscape.
All right. So, sounds like consensus is building. Does someone want to make a motion regarding the recommendation? Is she keeping track of the?
I move that we accept that recommendation.
Okay, is there a second?
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Councilor.
I go land.
Any other questions or comments or discussion? All in favor? Carried. Well done. You're not going to her book club, are you?
No.
Okay, good. Just checking. There's a lot of pressure on this time.
All right. Going on here.
You know, I don't care as long as you need.
All right, so next we're dealing with grant application at 75 Water.
Yes, so this
Now,
was
is
the late,
breaking news.
yeah, this was the late morning amendment to the agenda. So again, this property sold last August, I believe. So again, there's been lots of back and forth with this property owner. They grew up in a heritage home, and their father is actually the chair of a heritage committee in a different municipality. So they are very conscientious and have been calling with all sorts of questions about kind of what they can and cannot do, and even within what they can do, what would be the best way to go about things. So I was pleased to have the application finally in front of me. So what they're looking to do is basically scrape sand, paint, and prime the entire exterior of the property. Color wise, it will be staying similar to what's here. So I actually provided the property owner with a heritage color palette a couple of months ago, and so they're sticking with white for the trim, black for the door, and then like a similar kind of grayish, greenish, khaki color for the stucco. So and then there's several photos they provided me with, like 40 photos. So I just kind of gave you a selection here to kind of just give you a sense of like what, again, the woodwork most definitely is in need of some scraping and repair. And as the front door, and then this is on page 30 of your agenda package. So there was actually a water getting behind the eaves trough, which was leading to some water damage in the stucco. So there's some pretty substantial patching that needs to be done in a couple of areas. They have since fixed the eaves trough, so the water issue has been corrected. So I know that we only fund up to $2,500 in painting projects. I do think just given the scope of repair that needs to be done here as well, that this kind of goes beyond the scope of simply a painting project with all of the patching and the stucco that needs to be done. And in the designation statement, stucco is mentioned. This is one of the only stucco homes in St. Mary's from that era. So because of that, I'm recommending that we support 50% of the quote, which would get them 3,600 tons.
All right, would someone like to move the recommendation? Andrea, second. Joanne, any questions or discussion? Pretty sure I didn't look at paper to this house, and they had really good fudge at Christmas. But that might have been a few owners ago.
Oh, it's a wonderful house. I always admire this one.
All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Thank you. All right, and that brings us to our monthly report from the museum. Is that right? Or did I skip something?
There's nothing under 8.1.4 or
Right.
so yes. Right, so just a couple of highlights from the monthly report. So the visitor's guide is now out and being widely circulated. To be supported by writing a couple of articles. And I guess we also lay claim to Heritage Committee members contributing.
Yes, there some are also on the, or our staff rep is on the cover.
Yes. Yes, our Heritage Kayak Tours make the cover, so that's exciting. Staffing wise at the museum, it's been a busy couple of days as our Young Canada Works interns last day was last Friday, and then our summer students began on Monday. So that was a quick turnaround, but did allow for full coverage at the museum, which was great. So both students are settling in well, both are returning students, which is making onboarding go quite smoothly this week. Some programming highlights. So on April 17th, we hosted a regional homeschool group. The children ranged in age from 2 to 13, which is a bit of an adventure to come up with programming to keep that scope of age engaged, but it actually went over really well. Kingsway programming. So unfortunately we had to cancel yesterday just because I'm getting over a cold, but we are scheduled to be back in there in June, and we've also booked at VON. So both of those outreach programs were ones we were doing monthly up until the pandemic, and we have not been in either since. So we're excited to get back there. Yeah. We got new windows in the museum barn a couple of weeks ago, so we took that opportunity to do a major clean out there, and one of our summer students will be conducting an audit of that space. So we have quite a few duplicate artifacts out there, so we're hoping by the end of the summer to be bringing some deaccessions forward for this committee to review and help clear out some space there.
And that will be our first experience at museum cleaning.
It will.
All kinds of firsts.
It will. This I don't know who this woman was, and I wasn't convinced she was even calling the right museum until she mentioned Mary Smith, but she was wonderful. She thinks we are one of the best museums in Canada, so I thought I'd include that. Yeah, I do hope I get to meet her in person, but yeah, she called twice actually. The first time she kind of relayed this message to Emily. I was in a meeting, and then she called back the following day to relay the message to me. So I thought that was very lovely. And our spring seminar series continues next Thursday evening with heritage building renovations. So this is the one where the owners of, or the renovators of McDonald Cottage, Riverwalk Commons will both be presenting about their heritage renovation, and that is sold out as of yesterday. So that's exciting. And then the Heritage Festival is coming up July 14th and 15th. So I'm sitting on the internal planning committee for that. And of course, this year we're trying to put more heritage into the Heritage Festival. So I'm hoping to get an email out to this committee, if not this week, then next week, just to kind of get a sense if anyone has availability and willingness to volunteer that day, because we are going to be stretched kind of beyond our staff capabilities that day with between the heritage tours and 14 Church Street being open, and we're gonna have 2 booths downtown this year plus the museum being open, so lots going on. And St. With Doors Open, so it's coming up on September 23rd, and so again that will be an all hands on deck day if there are committee members that are willing to help out. We have 15 sites committed. And so I just gave a presentation at the BIA Monday night, just as a FYI, this is happening to help with cross promotion and just so that they're aware that they can expect heavier traffic that day.
Good, wonderful report. And thank goodness for that bird room. Put the 2-year-olds in the bird room and talk. Or was it the other way around? Yeah.
There was I've never encountered this before, but I should be more conscientious about this before taking children into that room. There was a child on the field trip who had been to the museum before, was aware of the bird room, has a phobia, and so I was asked to not include the bird room in my programming, so no children were left in there.
Oh, my
The bad
goodness.
ones. They'll grow. They'll grow. Thank you, Amy. Do you need, did we went for this last time? Do you need a motion? Or
Yes,
something to accept?
yes.
So that someone could care to move the acceptance of Amy's report. Julian, second. Andrea. Because the next thing on the agenda gives, or soon, give David about the next. There you go. All in favor? Wonderful report. St. Mary's does have connections to Museum William, right? Because it was Cull, right?
Shirley Thompson, yeah, was the director of the National Gallery for a while. Yeah.
She now has a gallery named after her.
Yes.
Yeah, with the voice of fire.
So you
And I was just there in March actually, and Kent Monkman has an exhibit there as well. And his birthplace is St. Mary's. He only lived here for maybe the first 3 weeks of his life, but St. Mary's is recorded as in the National Gallery. So, yeah.
8.3 public art business. I don't know that we have any business. Have we made progress since our last effort on policy?
Yeah, so those amendments have been made to the policy. There is a commemoration policy going to council next week or the week after. So Brent and I just cross-referenced the policies to make sure that mine aligned with his, especially when it comes to things like religious commemoration and things like that. So I made some like very minor amendments there on what's excluded from our policy, just so it matches what's excluded from the commemoration policy. And that is on the docket for council on June 9th or sometime in that second week of June.
So before our next meeting.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Council report, Councilor Lucas, there's no pressure.
No, and you know what, I said before everybody was in here, I said, really, council last night was super boring, but I just thought of this, is, as council and senior staff, we were invited to tour the town hall roof. So that was a really awesome opportunity to get up there and wander around the scaffold up top.
Oh, on the outside.
Yeah, on the
You were
outside.
In the attic.
No, not in the attic. No,
Okay.
we were looking at the slate
Oh.
removal and then they hadn't started the new installation. Obviously they have now, but it was really interesting to get that perspective of the downtown from up there, but also that perspective of.
Are the old slates going to the museum? If so.
Some
They've
are,
salvaged
Yeah.
what they can and they're
Yeah.
yeah,
gonna do
so
some stuff with that.
when that was done on the bell tower, I think we made about $2,200 in
Yeah.
selling slate, so.
Because my family looks at my slate pieces with jealous eyes, so I buy gifts.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was an interesting, that was the highlight, was the council meeting.
The highlight,
Yeah.
unintended.
Yeah, yes, very highly.
Thank you, that's, no worries. 10, other business, or any, but there's never- June 4th. Come together, businesses acquiring our attention.